In this video, I'm going to show you how to install TechT Vortex Mod. To begin, we need to remove the screw that holds on the cyclone paddles. Once you remove the screw there, go ahead and pull out the top paddle and turn it over and remove the 4 bottom base plate screws. Lift up on the piston housing and the base plate will come loose. Set that aside. Go ahead and grab the tension spring there and the nut, pull that out. Set the piston housing aside and you should be able to lift this right out of there and set that other cyclone paddle aside. Set your housing aside. And what you want to do is pop out the axle out of the ratchet. And what you're going to do is pop out these 2 pins. The one at the holds on to the rod. And I find that you can just use the spring here on a relatively new cyclone piece and just push it right out this back there. Sometimes you need pliers to just grab it out of there. Set aside your spring guide and your spring. Push out that other pin there. You can now put your stock axle and stock ratchet aside. You won't be needing those again. Take your Vortex ratchet and the small Vortex pin here, a small black one. And I find it easiest to use a stock rod here as a guide. Poke it through a little bit like that. What you're going to do is you're going to pound it into the front hole here. One with the big circle on the end. Pound it into this hole. Take a hammer. Just keep pounding it in. You don't want to pound it past flush on the bottom because otherwise it'll rub away on the inside of your cyclone housing. So just make it flush on the bottom there. Take your stock rod here and get some grease, either white lithium grease or TechT gun salve, and you want to grease up the end here. Nice. You see, so that you have as little friction as possible. Then slip your spring on there along with the cap and the side with the groove goes back towards the spring. Take the long pin. This is sort of a multi-handed process. And slip those together, just like that. Go ahead and grab your hammer. And you're going to want to pound that in as flush as possible on the bottom. Like that there. Next you want to take wire cutters and clip off 1 coil off your spring, and what that does is it'll reduce the tension that's put on the axle and cause less wear on it. And this is what it should look like when it's done. You should have 1 little wild coil like that. Go ahead and set that aside once you've cut it. And then it's time to grease up all the parts. Apply a liberal amount to your axle like so. and your ratchet here. Make sure you get the outside on that. Get inside there. Go ahead and take your spring then and insert it down to that hole, and the little guide just slip down there with it. Take your ratchet, make sure the curve is lined up with the curve on that end. Slip it down. Minor bit of persuasion will go right in there like that. Make sure your piston rod seal there is oiled. And go ahead and slip it back into your piston housing. Set this down on there into the cyclone. Look the nut, spring, make sure there's enough lube on there. Stick the base plate on, turn it over, and reinstall your paddles. And then grab the screw that came with your Vortex ratchet. Install that snug that up. Turn it over and reinstall the 4 base plate screws. And that's all there is to installing your TechT Vortex mod.